अरे अभी से इतना सीरियस हो गए, कैसे काम चलेगा? I haven't even started throwing the numbers at you. नंबर सुनोगे तब जाके सीरियस होगे. Ready to be serious? Here goes. 60. That's the number of army soldiers killed in Jammu and Kashmir in 2016. That's, by the way, twice as many who died in 2014 and 2015. If you include the paramilitary forces, the police, etc., the number in Jammu and Kashmir is much higher, by the way. Now, before you scream, Bharat Mata ki jai! And demand Pakistan be nuked into the stone ages for killing our jawans, consider this. The official number of soldiers who committed suicide in 2015, 77. And in 2016, the number is almost the same. You see, the army is very understandably very shy about releasing such sensitive numbers. So, moral of the story, many more army soldiers kill themselves than Pakistanis do. And what causes this? Stress, working conditions, isolation, domestic problems. The army doesn't really want us to know. Add to this makes the Central Armed Police Forces, that's basically the BSF, the CISF, the CRPF and the ITBP, etc., the suicide numbers shoot up to 120 a year. You want more data? You want more facts? Close to 300 soldiers die every year in road mishaps while on duty. That's the single largest reasons why our brave die. Not at the border, not at ICC Achin, but on the crossroads, on the road. But there is no outrage. There is no Bharat Mata ki jai over these senseless deaths. Why? You see, it's difficult to answer that why. Because for that, you will have to ask questions. And you know, that's the problem in India. सवाल पूछने का तो रिवाज ही नहीं है ना. देखो, बचपन में हमसे बोला जाता था, बड़ों से सवाल नहीं पूछते. हाँ? फिर आप गए स्कूल में बोला, गुरु से सवाल नहीं पूछते. और आजकल तो इंडिया आप देख ही रहे हो, पॉलिटिकल लीडर्स को सवाल का जवाब देना तो आता ही नहीं है.
Politics is everywhere. It's in your shirt, it's in your pants, it's everywhere.
अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो?
देखो, इंडिया हो या अमेरिका, ट्रंप हो या तुगलक, सवाल पूछे तो क्या हो जाता है? फेक मीडिया. तूने सवाल कैसे पूछ लिया? प्रेस्टिट्यूट मीडिया, एंटी नेशनल वगैरह वगैरह. वहां अमेरिका फर्स्ट, यहां इंडिया फर्स्ट, और ट्रूथ फर्स्ट तो गया तेल लेने. यार, वी आर द नेशन दैट हैज एन अवार्ड नेम्ड आफ्टर अ मिथिकल गुरु हु टुक द राइट थंब ऑफ अ यंग बॉय हु कुड हैव बिकम एन आर्चर एज ग्रेट एज द मिथिकल अर्जुन. भाई, जब अवार्ड का नाम ही द्रोणाचार्य हो तो क्या कल्चर और क्या क्यूरोसिटी. लेकिन क्योंकि हम बिगड़े हुए गुरुओं के बिगड़े हुए शागिर्द हैं, तो हम तो सवालों का पहाड़ खड़ा कर देंगे. हाँ, चाहे सर कट जाए या मुंडी, नो एक्सक्यूज मी, या अंगूठा कट जाए. वैसे तो soldiers at the border had become a very magical and convenient phrase to deflect any question in 2016. It suited our nationalists just fine. कुछ भी जवाब हो, soldier at the border. But why go into facts, data and logic when the imagery of a Veer Jawan at the border has been good enough to silence any uncomfortable question? So convenient. ये suspension of any brain usage strategy हमारे देश प्रेमी citizens और कुछ टीवी रिपोर्टर्स के लिए एकदम झकास वर्क कर रही थी. Till this happened.
हम लोग सुबह 6 बजे से शाम को 5 बजे तक कंटिन्यू 11 घंटे ड्यूटी, वो भी स्टैंडिंग खड़े होकर. हमारी क्या सिचुएशन है, ना ये कोई मीडिया दिखाता है, ना कोई मिनिस्टर सुनता है.
तेज बहादुर didn't just upset the social media apple cart. He completely disarmed the don't criticize XYZ aspect of our governance because soldier is at the border narrative. Because here is a soldier at the border asking uncomfortable questions about what is being done to soldiers at the border, and here is the funny part, he can't be shut up or shut down with the swear that don't ask soldiers because soldiers are at the border, because here is a soldier at the border.
अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो?
Now, after Bahadur's post on the pathetic conditions in a BSF camp went viral for good reason, the inevitable backlash also happened, from being called an alcoholic to indisciplined to having been court-martialed before. Bahadur was basically reduced to the worst BSF Jawan ever, period, ever.
Never, ever, ever.
Ever, ever.
Never, ever.
Ever, ever.
Ever, ever.
Who, by the way, the authorities still found competent enough to be put in a sensitive post on a border with a gun in hand. So then the entire spicy defense became, why was he talking about burnt roti and watery dal? Bhaktjan, I have a suggestion to attack soldiers on the border who have complaints about soldiers on the border. Tell them, people are dying, standing in ATM lines for the sake of the nation. And here is a soldier cribbing about food. No patriotism, no nationalism. Genius idea, na? But what got But lost in all this character assassination were some rather clear, lucid and factual points that Bahadur had made. That too, by the way, as a personal plea to the Prime Minister.
मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी से भी कहना चाहता हूं कि कृपा करके इसकी जांच करवाएं।
One, that ration was being siphoned off.
मैं फिर कह रहा हूं, भारत सरकार सब कुछ देती है, भारत सरकार के सब कुछ आता है, स्टोर भरे पड़े हैं, लेकिन वह सब बाजार में चला जाता है। कहां जाता है, कौन बिक्री करता है, इसकी जांच होनी चाहिए।
Two, physical evidence of the food that was actually being served at the camp.
अभी मैं आपको दिखाता हूँ बीएसएफ की, ये देखो दाल, सिर्फ हल्दी नमक, 10 घंटा ड्यूटी जवान करने के बाद ये दाल कंटिन्यू 10 दिन से यही दाल और ये रोटियां देखिए आप ये।
3, Bahadur clearly knows the consequences of his action of putting this video out.
दोस्तों ये वीडियो डालने के बाद शायद मैं रहूं या ना रहूं, क्योंकि अधिकारियों के बहुत बड़े हाथ।
Bahadur got one thing right. True to his prediction, he can be rest assured that his career is completely fucked. But sadder is the fact that nothing will come out of his allegations. Old timers in the forces will tell you the allegations are quite true, as this Times of India report found out. But just a day after Bahadur's video, another video went viral. This time a CRPF constable who had taken to social media in December to express his grouse and some rather shocking facts to the Prime Minister, including the lack of any benefits to the CRPF. And then another one emerged, this time from the army itself. Yagna Pratap Singh came out with a video complaining about how army officers made soldiers do their personal work in the name of course, the buddy or sahayak system.
इस वीडियो के साथ मैं अपनी वीडियो के साथ में कुछ ऐसे वीडियो भेज रहा हूं जो अधिकारियों के द्वारा जवानों का शोषण किया जा रहा है। किस तरह से जवान कुत्ते टहला रहे हैं, बच्चे खिला रहे हैं, गाड़ियां साफ कर रहे हैं। भारतीय सेना के अधिकारियों द्वारा जवानों का किस तरह से शोषण किया जाता है, इसके बारे में मैं काफी दिनों से परेशान था।
Obviously, experts and talking heads and even the army chief were alarmed at the chain of command being broken like this and people coming out on social media.
Social media is two-sided weapon. It sometimes has a detrimental effect. Rather than indirectly communicating their grievances, we have a excellent grievances redressal mechanism that exists in the army.
Understandably, the army chief is defending his turf, but the fact is that such frustrations and grievances can lead to deadly consequences. Sometimes for others as well, as CISF's Balveer Singh showed last week when he gunned down 4 of his colleagues over a leave-related argument. His superiors didn't even know that he was mentally ill and was actually undergoing treatment. That is the reality. But sweeping all of this under the carpet will certainly not help Mr. Rijuju.
खाना पीना को लेकर के अभी तक कोई समस्या नहीं आया। पूरा रिपोर्ट जब तक नहीं आता है, इसको विषय ना बनाएं।
Hello, excuse me. This should be made an issue because the suicide toll in the highly disciplined armed forces continue to cross 100 mark a year after year, despite the so-called measures being undertaken by the defense establishment. And what have these measures done? As many as 597 military personnel committed suicide in 5 years between 2009 and 2013. There will be many people jumping to blame this chain of social media cries for help by men in uniform who are actually guarding our border. They would blame the Prime Minister, to the hyper-nationalist Deshbhakt, to the Chief of Army or the Ministry of Defense, and all of them may have a point. But the biggest failure this has demonstrated is that of the news media. That's right, our failure. Because you see, institutions like the army are built on discipline. And if you have a trend of soldiers and combatants rising up and complaining about food, they're not going to respond to an order to go out and fight in a hail of bullets. And at the end of the day, that's what the forces are supposed to do. That is what we expect of them. There is a sign at the Indian Military Academy hostel with the Indian Army's Code of the Warrior. And I quote, "God, give me the strength to ask nothing of you." That is the code of the warrior for good reasons. And it must be followed for a disciplined army to survive. Otherwise, things will just fall apart. That is what the army chief is worried about. But that does not mean that their horrible working and living conditions are to be ignored. Those have to be uncovered and made into not a deal, a big deal by news professionals. Why this cry for help on social media is a slap on our faces is because we have studio warriors dressed out of their comical battle gear hosting shows like India First and Bharat Mata Ki Jai or whatever the fuck, while they should have been exposing how those who are at the border are getting a raw deal and raw dal That is what is the role of the media is. Not to say that everything is okay and anyone who has a question is anti-national. So Modi ji, army chiefs, defense ministry, babus, yes, of course they're an issue. But the real problem is the media, because had we been able to run story after story on the rot in the Indian army, the warrior would not have had to break his code and cry out in this manner on social media. So next time anyone calls himself a serious and responsible journalist, give it a thought, pause, check, and see how much of journalism has happened and how much of press releases have been rewritten as defense stories. The army chief is threatening now action against those who speak out without realizing that those Jawans are already aware of the action while they are speaking out. So the least that we can do is to fucking listen and force the holier-than-thou army and the forces to perhaps act and not again brush everything under the carpet under the guise of Bharat Mata Ki Jai. And by the way, you don't need to brush aside all the comments and the abuses for me under the carpet. There is a comment section. Please comment. Please subscribe to News Laundry.
If you like that, click here to support us and down here to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do check out the other stuff we do like News Laundry interviews, Why So Serious, animations, comics, panel discussions, podcasts which are really big, and much, much more.